Most people think a marriage ends with a big fight or a loud scream, but for me, it ended with a whisper and a secret that could destroy 3 lives. My name is Tina, and I was a woman living a lie that felt more real than the truth. This is how my perfect world turned into a nightmare in just one night. To the world, we were the perfect couple living in a beautiful house with a garden. Martin was a successful man, and I was the dedicated wife who kept everything in order. But inside those 4 walls, the air was cold, and the love had turned into ice. We shared the same bed, but we were miles apart, separated by an invisible wall of silence. Every morning was the same, the sound of the coffee machine and the rustle of the newspaper. Martin would look at his watch more often than he ever looked at my face. We talked about bills, the children's school, and the weather, but we never talked about us. I was 33 years old, and I felt like my soul was slowly turning into dust. One rainy Tuesday, the silence in the house became so loud that I couldn't take it anymore. I watched Martin leave for another important business trip without even a goodbye kiss. I stood by the window for an hour, watching the rain wash away my reflection. I realized then that if I didn't find a way to feel alive, I would simply vanish. I ended up in a small, dimly lit cafe downtown just to escape the empty house. The smell of roasted beans and old books filled the air, making me feel strangely safe. That's when I saw him, Justin, sitting alone, bathed in the soft glow of a table lamp. He looked up, and for the first time in years, someone actually saw me. Justin didn't ask about my chores or my responsibilities. He asked about my dreams. His words were like a warm blanket on a freezing night, and I couldn't help but smile. We spent hours talking, oblivious to the world outside or the wedding ring on my finger. Leaving that cafe was the hardest thing I had ever done. I was hooked on the attention. Within weeks, my life split into 2 completely different worlds. During the day, I was the quiet Mrs. Martin, folding laundry and making school lunches. But every evening, I was a woman waiting for a secret text that made my heart jump. I was living a thriller, and the adrenaline was the only thing making me feel beautiful again. Every time I returned home, the guilt followed me like a long, dark shadow. I would look at our children and feel a sharp pain in my chest, but the fire for Justin was too strong. I started wearing new perfume and smiling at my phone, thinking Martin was too busy to notice. I didn't realize that a man who doesn't speak is often a man who is observing everything. The children were away at their grandmother's, and Martin was supposedly 200 miles away. The house felt huge and quiet, the perfect stage for a secret meeting. I invited Justin over, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and pure terror. We thought the walls would protect our secret, but the house itself felt like it was watching us. We were in the kitchen, laughing softly over a glass of wine, finally feeling free. Suddenly, the heavy sound of the front door opening echoed through the hallway. The laughter died instantly, replaced by a cold, paralyzing fear that gripped my throat. Tina, why are the lights still on? Martin's voice boomed, closer than I ever expected. My world shattered in a single second. I pushed Justin toward the bedroom, my hands trembling like a leaf in a storm. "Don't make a sound," I hissed, my voice cracking with pure terror. I stood in the middle of the hallway, trying to slow down my racing heart before the door opened. The door swung wide, and Martin walked in, his coat dripping with cold rain. He didn't look at me, he just stared at the 2 wine glasses sitting on the table. The air in the room felt heavy, like a storm was about to break inside our house. "I thought you were sleeping, Tina," he said, his voice as cold as ice. I started talking fast, my words tripping over each other like a nervous child. I couldn't sleep, so I was watching a movie," I lied, my face burning with shame. Martin walked closer, his eyes scanning every shadow, every corner, every hidden spot. He was a hunter, and he knew that there was another animal in his territory. He moved toward the bedroom, his hand reaching for the cold brass handle. My breath caught in my throat. I felt like I was going to faint right there. "Wait, Martin, let's go to the kitchen. I'll make you some tea." I grabbed his arm. He stopped, his hand just inches away from the door where Justin was hiding. Martin looked down at my hand on his arm, then slowly looked into my eyes. In that moment, I realized he didn't need proof. He could see the guilt on my face. "You're shaking, Tina," he whispered, his gaze piercing through my layers of lies. He didn't open the door, but the way he looked at it told me everything I feared. While Martin was in the kitchen, I signaled the back window to Justin. I watched his shadow disappear into the darkness of the backyard, silent as a ghost. The immediate danger was gone, but the heavy weight on my chest remained. The secret was safe for now, but my heart was broken into 1,000 pieces. The next morning, the sun felt too bright for a house filled with such dark secrets. I waited for a text, a call, or any sign that Justin was okay and still loved me. But my phone remained silent, its black screen mocking my desperate heart. I was a woman who had risked everything, and now I was starting to feel the loss. Finally, a message arrived, but it wasn't the one I was dreaming of. "We almost got caught, Tina. This fear is killing the love we had," Justin wrote. "I'm sorry, but I can't be the man who destroys a family. Goodbye." I dropped the phone, the sound of it hitting the floor echoing my own internal crash. For the next week, Martin and I lived like 2 ghosts haunting the same hallways. He didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer any more lies to cover my tracks. We ate in silence, slept in silence, and breathed in silence. It wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a funeral that never seemed to end. One night, I found Martin sitting alone in the garden, looking at the dead flowers. "I loved you once, Tina," he said, his back turned towards me, his voice breaking. I stayed quiet because I thought if I didn't say it, it wouldn't be true. The honesty in his voice hurt more than any scream or fight ever could. I stood behind Martin, watching his shoulders tremble in the moonlight. The distance between us wasn't just physical, It was a vast ocean of years of neglect. "I know," I whispered, the words feeling like sharp glass in my throat. The air was cold, but the truth finally coming out felt like a freezing winter wind. "I saw you coming alive again," Martin continued, his voice barely a whisper. "And it killed me to know that I wasn't the reason for your smile anymore. I realized that while I was searching for love outside, he was watching our love die inside. We were both broken, but in completely different, agonizing ways." I went back inside and saw my packed suitcases waiting by the bedroom door. For months, I had dreamed of leaving, of running into Justin's waiting arms. But now that the door was wide open, I felt a strange, hollow emptiness. The freedom I wanted felt more like a lonely exile from everything I knew. The next morning, the house was filled with a strange golden light. The storm had passed, leaving the garden wet and the air incredibly fresh. Martin was already at the kitchen table, but he wasn't looking at his phone. He was looking at me, really looking at me for the first time in an eternity. He pushed a white envelope toward me across the smooth wooden table. My heart skipped a beat. I thought it was the divorce papers I had feared. But inside was a small handwritten note from our very first anniversary. "I will never let you go," it said, in the messy handwriting of a man who once loved me deeply. "Is there anything left for us to save, Tina?" Martin asked, his eyes searching mine. The silence that followed was the most important moment of my entire life. I thought about Justin's disappearance and Martin's quiet, steady presence. One was a temporary flame, the other was a slow burning candle in the dark. "I don't know if we can fix it," I said, tears finally blurring my vision. "But I know that I don't want to live in the shadows of secrets anymore." I picked up the pen and signed my name, not on a divorce paper, but on a letter to myself, a promise to stop running and start facing the beautiful, messy truth of my life. I deleted Justin's number and blocked the memories of those secret nights. It hurt to let go, like pulling a bandage off a wound that wasn't yet healed. But as the messages vanished, the heavy weight on my chest began to lift. I wasn't a wife with a secret anymore. I was just a woman trying to find her way back. That evening, Martin and I walked in the garden, not speaking, but holding hands. The silence was still there, but it wasn't suffocating anymore. It was peaceful. We had a long, difficult road ahead of us, filled with hard conversations and old pain. But for the first time in 8 years, we were walking that road together. A secret love is like a beautiful flower that grows in a dark, poison garden. It looks lovely for a moment, but it will eventually kill everything around it. Don't wait for a storm to realize that your home is worth saving. My name is Tina, and I finally learned that the greatest secret is knowing how to stay. Thank you for joining us for this emotional journey of the wife's secret. If Tina's story reminded you that honesty is the only way to save what you love, please like, share, and subscribe to English Story Hub. Remember, a secret might feel like a light, but the truth is the only thing that sets you free. Keep learning, keep growing, and we will see you in the next story. Goodbye.